JJ the CPA. Hope you are doing well. All right. We are now still getting ready for our self-employed and independent contractor friends to get ready to get their Triple P Friday, April 10th. So I did an update on this, so check it out. If you're a sole proprietor, that means you file Schedule C, and guess what? You can be filing right now. You don't have to wait till Friday. I think that you should get after it. Now, when we're talking about the checklist, we're going to talk about what do you need if you have employees, right? Because if you're a sole proprietor, you very well may have employees, okay? Then we're going to talk about what to pull together if you're a sole proprietor, and then what to pull together if you're self-employed or independent contractor. Basically the same thing. But hey, before we dive in, I'd love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate it. So when we're looking at the checklist and this Paycheck Protection Program, what I'm giving you here is what is required. It's what's in the law. The banks are sometimes asking for more information for internal purposes. Sometimes they're making a determination of if this loan is not forgiven, how does it fall into their books, and all kinds of other things. So just know if it's not on this list, it's just not required in terms of what your banker wants. So you want the health insurance records, the employer retirement plan match record, so a statement or a letter or something from your insurance advisor, insurance broker, or your investment advisor, but statements would really be best. You want payroll records by employee for the period that you are using. So if you're going calendar, of course you want then those 12 months. If you're doing the last 12 months, then you're going to want April through March of 2020. The reason for the payroll records by employee is so that the bank can verify that you're not including in payroll anybody's payroll that's above $100,000. Now, if you're using calendar year, it's going to be really simple. You're going to pull together all four Form 941s, and you're going to want to use line 5C. They're going to want to see your W-2s and your W-3s. If their worksheet says to use W-3 in essence, because W-3 is the summary, then you're going to want to use box 5. So what I've got here is, here's the 941, okay? That's the employer's. And then what you're looking is over here to know what quarter you're dealing with. So obviously when you're trying to figure out, okay, do I need first, second, third, and fourth of 19, or do I need second, third, and fourth of 19 and first of 20? This is where you would be looking. Of course, the 19 ones will say 19 on it. And then what you're wanting to use here is the Medicare wages and tips. If we look at the W-3, okay, you're wanting to use box 5. The W-3 is a summary or an add-up, basically, of all the W-2s. So line 5 here and line 5C, column 1, are going to produce the same number. And the reason you want to use number 5 is that it will lead to the most accurate number used. It is possible that you're going to see box 1 higher than these other two boxes, meaning it would be higher than 3 and higher than 5. But that would be because there's taxable fringe benefits that's being added, and those under Chapter 24 of the IRC is not considered wages. Therefore, it is not included. It is amounts that are added to box 1, not subject to withholding. Therefore, under Chapter 24, it's not included. Social Security wages, those are limited depending on the year. But then Medicare wages doesn't have reduction for 401k. It's not going to include these taxable benefits to the extent of the insurance. So that is going to be your most pure number for you to go by. Now, when we're talking about pulling together these documents, what's best is to either scan them all into one, and if you're going to send something to the banker, you know, it'd be best to send it in one PDF, you know, have it kind of in order the way you would want to see it. You know, your application on top, and then tax forms behind that, insurance behind that, and then your employer match. Like, make it easy for your banker versus if you send them, you know, 17 different PDFs and they got, where's this, where's that? They may come back to you and say, hey, do you have this? And you're like, oh, I already sent it. Long story short, we're going even one step further. We're using Dropbox, putting all the documents in there, sharing it with the client. If they want to share it with a third party, they can do that, of course. But when you're looking and you're going to do then calendar year, you're going to want the W-2, W-3. Now notice this, if you're going for the last 12 months, which would be April 19 through March 2020, well, there's not going to be W-2, W-3 because that's only based on calendar year, right? January through December. So you'll need 941s for second, third, and fourth quarter 2019, and then first quarter 2020. And you're going to want to use, as I'd indicated, line C, line 5C from the 941s, and then use box 5 for the W3. So I'm going to have another video, and I'm going to run through basically how to then calculate this out. So this is just what documents do you need, and where do you need to be looking. Now let's go down to sole proprietor. So this was there and up, because if sole proprietors have employees, then they're going to need to still pull this together. And I got another video that talks about what happens if you're somebody that's a sole proprietor and you have employees. So on sole proprietors, those are ones that file on Schedule C. So if you have 2019 done, then you're going to grab that. If you don't have 2019 done, then bring the 2018 Schedule C and Schedule SE, because that's where the self-employment earnings flow to, because that'll show the bank that you are an established sole proprietor. If you haven't filed a Schedule C before, that's fine, but if you had, bring it. And then if you have not, okay, if 2019 has not been done, bring 18, but then bring a P&L with a draft 2019 Schedule C. So you can go to, and I don't ever advise this, but we're in, economic crisis circumstances. But here is that Schedule C. Okay, I'm just going to give you a side note that if you have an EIN number over here, you want to do the PPP in that ID number, because if you have an ID number, 99% of the time that means you have employees. That's what then the IRS knows knows that there's going to be payroll related to that. And then basically what you're looking for then is this line 31. Once we get a little more guidance, we might be able to add back things like depreciation or car expense or interest, because in normal lending circumstances, those are expenses that you get to add back. Now, if you are putting together a P&L, make sure that all you're including in there is tax deductible items. So entertainment, 0 deduction under the law. Meals and entertainment, only half is deductible. Life insurance, disability insurance, you don't want to deduct it. It shouldn't be tax deductible. It might be in there. And then the other last main thing that I find with clients is, it seems logical, but they put their full car payment or full loan payment on the P&L, meaning you're only able to write off the interest portion of that. Probably all know that, but when the payment's being made, many times that's just booked straight to the P&L. So what you want to take a look at is whether or not you are pulling the right numbers, because it's based on your net income. So if there's expenses that you're paying through, like home mortgage, home insurance, home utilities, those are not business expenses, even if you have a home office, right? That's a whole different calculation. Point is, if you're not done with 2019 Schedule C and you're putting yours together, just make sure that you're being fair to yourself and don't exclude or include anything that you shouldn't. So when you're talking about a sole proprietor, then you also want to grab the Schedule SE and the Schedule 1. Now these are not going to be on the list, most likely with the bank, but the reason that you want the SE, as I indicate, box 1 comes from K1 and Net Farm, and then you've got, look at here, number 2 is encompassing of Schedule C, right, line 31, but then I had talked before, we got 1065s with box 14 that comes into play there, so you want to have that handy with you. And then on this Schedule 1, the reason you want to look to Schedule 1 is that it will help substantiate the health record and the retirement contributions. So nonetheless, you need to go ahead and still get that documentation, but when we're looking at what your going to base the loan on, and what your loan, the max loan, it's going to be what you actually did during the period of time that you are applying for, right? Okay, so let's look here on Schedule 1. If we go to that, right down here in the adjustments, so it's line 15 and line 16, and so I'll have another video where we kind of go through the calculation where I literally pull together and tell you what line item to get. If you've received any 1099s, go ahead and pull those together. So these are the items plus the application that you would want to have in hand. Check with the bank, see if they have a separate checklist for you. Now, independent contractors and self-employed, I think basically what this is getting at with all of this is that this would be somebody that's receiving 1099s or they're doing gigs, as this new terminology's come into play. So they don't have a business, right? So they probably don't really have any expenses. Now, I will say this, if I have someone who's an independent contractor and self-employed, if they don't have any expenses, well, it's not going to go on Schedule C. It'll just be other income subject to self-employment tax. But if they have any expenses, I'm still going to put that on a Schedule C. So Schedule C, I think, is still most likely what you're going to use or your bank's going to use. But for independent contractors and self-employed, the biggest aspect that they need are the 1099s that they received. Now, if they filed a Schedule C, that's great. Have them pull the Schedule C as well as the Schedule SE. Then on sole proprietors with employees, okay, I'm going to have a special video just on that. But basically, you're going to do two simultaneous parallel calculations, and then at the end, you're going to combine it for a combined amount from the PPP. So with the sole proprietor, bring all items in both sections. So if you're a sole proprietor with employees, then you're going to need all the things that are up here as the employer, okay? And you're going to need all these things here as the sole proprietor. So you'll see in another video, basically we figure out what those figures are independent of each other, and then we figure out what the max loan is based on that. So basically, if you have your ducks in a row and you pull these things, and these are all things from third quarter, so if you have reports from your QuickBooks or you have other payroll reports, maybe it'll work, but what I've listed here will meet the guidelines of the SBA. So not too big a deal in the sense that you should have this all on your at your fingertips. You should have received all 1099s by now, without a doubt, because those were previously due, especially if you're basing it on 2019. So do know this, on my website, JJ the CPA Help, on the PPP page, I've got 4 different pictures there. One is how to do by 12 month, how to do by calendar year, this PPP aspect, and then also it's in Excel. Okay, so make sure you're picking the right one to match what you're doing. But basically, you're pulling this stuff together, you're filling out your application through the bank for the SBA, and if you're filing a Schedule C, you can put sole proprietor. I don't know that it makes any difference. Your head count would be you, but if you are employing employees, then of course your head count for the employees on that application will be reflective of that, but you're basically trying to provide a good faith effort number of employees at February 15th of 2020 to try and kind of create, or not try, but to actually create a level of kind of fairness. And so anyways, at the end of the day, here are the documents that you want to pull together so that you are prepared to now get your PPP. All right, so hey, check out the other videos as I'm going to walk through the calculations and walking through each one. Now, look at some calculations that I did for those that are employers that have employees. So I've already done some videos on that. I'll put that as a link right now at the end to the video where I went over the worksheet for just employers pulling together their employee information. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we're going to get through this. I hope that everything goes smooth, and I'll be talking to you soon. All right, JJ the CPA out.